ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So in the last session we started this very important topic of sadhana chatushtaya. Actually that sadhana chatushtaya comes under the topic of pumstvam or viprata, the humane or the important qualities required for spiritual progress. And while explaining those qualities are mentioned as eligibility criteria. Sadhana chatushtaya, the fourfold means to attain the supreme. Very beautifully Bhagavan Shankaracharya starts the topic by saying that there are some general qualifications that are required. The mind is what he is talking about and how that mind should be. So he said medhavi purusha, the person should be medhavi, should have medha retention power. Vidwan should have knowledge of what? Knowledge of other things required, not knowledge of the main subject. That will come when the main subject is taught, right? But a mind that is receptive, is able to grasp and understand. And third, uhapoha vichakshanaha, a mind that is able to think, reflect independently, not believing in whatever is heard just like that without thinking over it. No, you listen with faith, believe in it, but then what? Then think over it, independently thinking over it. So a mind that is retentive, receptive and reflective, such a mind is eligible for this path, right? That is first thing what Shankaracharya says. Then he says now comes the special qualities. These are general qualities. What are the special qualities required for spiritual progress, for this path of knowledge? What is that? So fourfold qualities, fourfold qualification: viveka, vairagya, shamadhi shat sampatti and mumukshutva. Viveka, the ability to distinguish. Vairagya, detachment or dispassion. Shamadhi Shat Sampatti, the sixfold inner wealth, and Mumukshutva, desire for liberation. A student endowed with these four qualities is eligible for the path of knowledge. Right? After mentioning these four qualities, Shankaracharya says, Sadhanani atra chatvari kathitani manishibhi. These are not the qualities that I am saying should be there in a person, but this is what the ancestors have told us. This is what the great seers, the great thinkers of the past have given us. Yeshu satsu eva sannistha yad abhave na siddhyati. Very important line. I hope you have marked. Yeshu satsu, when these qualities are present in a person, sannistha, there will be abidance in the self. Yad abhave, when these qualities are absent, na siddhyati, that attainment of the supreme goal, liberation, is not possible if these qualities are not there. Which means what? When these four qualities are present in us even a bit, we can start the path of knowledge and simultaneously improve on these four qualities. And when these four qualities will reach its pinnacle, that moment we will realize. Yeshu satsu sannistha. When these qualities are present, we can abide in the self. Yad abhave, when these qualities are absent, na siddhyati, the self cannot be attained. And therefore, what are these qualities and how to inculcate these qualities becomes very important, and that's the topic that Shankaracharya continues with. Right? Also, we saw in the last session that these qualities Upanishads are talking about. It's not that Shankaracharya has got these qualities from somewhere and he is telling, no. That's why he said, Kathitani Manishibhi. These are spoken of by the great thinkers of the past. We saw how Mundakopanishad speaks about Viveka and Vairagya. Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmanaha Nirvedam Ayat. Nirvedam is Vairagya. We have another Shruti from Brihadaranyaka which tells the entire Shamadhi Shat Sampatti, Shanto, Danta, Uparatastitikshu, Samahito Bhutva, Shraddha Samahito Bhutva, Atmani Eva Atmanam Pashyati. Another Shruti is there from Shvetashvatar Upanishad, Mumukshurvai, Sharanamaham Prapadde. I am Mumukshu. I am the one who has got that desire for liberation. Aham Sharanam Prapadde. I have come to surrender unto you. The student is saying to the teacher. So these four qualities are found in different places. Shankaracharya just brought it and put together and called it as Sadhana Chatushtaya. Right? So now that Sadhana Chatushtaya, he explains briefly in one verse, and then one quality will be taken in the upcoming verses. So what does he say? He says, Adau, first. Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekaha Pariganyate. First, which quality is counted? He says, Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. The ability to discriminate, distinguish, differentiate between Nitya and Anitya Vastu. What is permanent and what is impermanent. This is the first quality. Ability to distinguish, differentiate, discriminate. Right? What is second? Iha amutra phala bhoga viragaha tadanantaram. After that, what is the quality? Iha here, amutra somewhere else, phala the result of action, bhoga enjoyment of that result, viragaha detachment from it, not hankering over it, is called as second quality, vairagya or viraga. Viraga, detachment, dispassion. Then what? Tadanantaram, after that what? Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi, the sixfold inner wealth. We will see why it is called as wealth, why are they put together, all that we will see. But third quality is that Shama Adi, Shama etc. Starting from Shama, 6 qualities are mentioned as inner wealth. And last one, Mumukshuttvamiti. And the fourth one is burning desire for liberation. Iti Sputam. Thus, it's clearly mentioned that in this order only, these qualities, are important. This is the order that, is given in our scriptures also. Why? Because there is a gradual dependency. We will see. Unless Viveka is there, Vairagya is not possible. Unless Viveka, Vairagya is there, Shama, etc. is not possible. We will see how it is connected. But that's how he had said. Now he goes to the first quality, Viveka. We had seen the verse last time. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya iti evam rupo vinishchayaha saha ayam nitya vastu vivekaha samudahritaha. What is the discrimination between the permanent and impermanent? How is it defined? It is defined as vinishchayaha. Firm understanding, unshaking, strong determination. What determination? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahman is real, world is unreal. This kind of firm understanding is called as Viveka. Viveka is a technical term here. All these are technical terms now we are seeing. Why I am saying technical term Paribhashika Shabda? Why? Because Viveka we use in common parlance also. Isn't it? Viveka means to distinguish. We distinguish whether to eat dosha today or idli. Whether to drink cold water or hot water. Whether to eat this ice cream or that ice cream. This is also Viveka only. Viveka comes from root which means to separate out. So, Viveka means separating out. That we do every time. What is special in this? In Vedanta, when it is said Viveka, what does it mean? It means separating out the permanent from all that is impermanent. Separating out the Brahman which is real from the entire world which is unreal. In worldly parlance, we differentiate between two impermanent things. Whereas in Vedanta, when we say Viveka, it means to understand that Brahman alone is real, world is unreal. Now, taking this thought, we then analyzed the meaning of the word real and unreal, Satya and Mithya. And then we saw that there are 3 levels of reality, 3 grades of reality. Remember? Pratibhasika Satya, Vyavaharika Satya and Paramarthika Satya. Pratibhasika Satya means seeming reality, apparent reality, which appears but is not there. Like dream, like the snake that is misunderstood on the rope. This is called Pratibhasika Satya. Then second level of reality is Vyavaharika Satya, transactional reality. Means what? It is real for the moment when we are transacting with it. Right? The world is transactional reality. Now remember, when that Pratibhasika Satya, when the seeming reality, we are in that state, we feel that is also real. In the dream, we think dream is real. But when we get up from the dream, we understand that the dream was unreal. Now we are awake to this world. And therefore we say the world is real. But remember, that it is also not absolutely real. It is only comparatively real. As compared to Pratibhasika Satya, it is real. But as compared to the third grade, the third level of reality, that is Paramarthika Satya, absolute reality. From that level, even this world becomes unreal. Careful. That Pratibhasika seeming reality is actually the lowest level. Then there is Vyavaharika. Then highest is Paramarthika. For that Paramarthika Satya, there is no example because there is only one Brahman which is Paramarthika Satya, which is absolutely real. Everything else either comes in Vyavaharika Satya or Pratibhasika Satya, either in transactional reality or seeming reality. This is what we have understood. So, when the world is called as unreal, what does it mean? It means it appears real only in its own time. Like the dream which appears real when we are in dream. Like that world appears real when we are in waking. When we awake to the highest state of consciousness, that supreme state of Brahman, even the world will be understood as unreal. Therefore, the word used is mithya. Mithya means what? There is no independent existence. The entire world is superimposed on Brahman, just like snake is superimposed on rope. This kind of firm understanding is called as Viveka. Okay. We also saw last time, comparing this definition with the definition from Tattvabodha, this is a little higher definition. The Tattvabodha definition says Brahma, it doesn't say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. It says Nitya Vastu Ekam Brahma Tad Vyatiriktam Sarvam Anityam. It says that Brahman alone is permanent and world is impermanent. Now somebody says, Veji, is the world impermanent or unreal? Tell clearly. Array, my dear, because it is impermanent, therefore finally it is unreal. Something that is permanent alone can be real. Trikala abhaditam satyam. Satya is what? Reality is what? That which remains same, constant, unchanging in all the three periods of time. That can only be Brahman. All other things are impermanent and therefore finally unreal. But then why Shankaracharya is defining it here like this? Because when world is called as unreal, it becomes easy for us to give it up. Something that is impermanent, we still have attachment towards it. Last time we saw one example, if you remember. Tea made by my wife or by my mother is impermanent. But imaginary tea made by my daughter when she is playing, that game is unreal. See the difference between impermanent and unreal. When I come back from office, when I come back from outside, my mother or my wife gives me tea. I can drink it, no. It is on the transactional level of reality. And therefore, we understand it to be impermanent. It is, we don't say it is unreal. It is there, I am drinking. We don't feel that it is unreal. If we say it is impermanent, it will give me joy for some time. But that imaginary tea made in imaginary stove with imaginary gas, everything is imaginary there in my daughter's game room, and therefore that tea is not there at all. And what is not there, I can give it up very easily because I don't have any attachment towards it. By calling world as unreal here, Shankaracharya ji is making our life easy so that we can go to the next quality, Vairagya, and imbibe it easily. Something that is not real, why to have attachment for it? That's the point that he makes, right? Now, let us go ahead and see the next quality, Vairagya, verse number 21. Rekhama, will you repeat? You can unmute yourself. Yes. Tadvairagyam jihasaya darshana shravanadibhihi dehadi brahma paryante ह्यनित्ये भोगवस्तुनि तद्वैराग्यं जिहासाया दर्शनश्रवणादिभिः देहादिब्रह्मपर्यन्ते ह्यनित्ये भोगवस्तुनि. What is said? Shankaracharya says Tatvairagyam. That is called as dispassion. Vairagya. Vairagya means viragasya bhavaha. Attitude of detachment. Vigata ragaha. Viragaha. Raga means attachment. Careful. Okay. Especially all the Maharashtrian people who understand Marathi. Special attention required. Raga in Sanskrit means attachment. In Marathi, raga means anger. This is exact opposite. Sanskrit, raga means like, attachment. Raga dvesha vishayana, like and dislike. So, raga means the feeling that it is nice, I want it. This is mine. This is called as raga. Anuraga, sometimes also used. Love. So, vigata raga, where that feeling of attachment is not there, that is called as viraga. Now that viragasya bhavaha, that state of detachment is called as vairagya. Vairagya. Vairagya means dispassion, state of detachment. Right? Tat vairagyam. What is that vairagya? Ya, that which is jihasa. Jihasa. Jihasa means what? Hatumichha jihasa. Desiderative. We have seen many words till now which are desideratives. Remember? Don't forget whatever we have seen in the previous classes. Bubhuksha, pipasa, mumuksha. Remember? All these are called as desideratives. Desideratives means the words that show desire. Jidnyasa, jnatumichha, a desire to know. Like here what is said, jihasa, hatumichha. Hatum means to give up. Ichha means desire. Desire to give up. Desire to give up is called as detachment. Carefully see. Desire to give up is called as detachment, he said. He said that feeling should be there, that I want to give this up. And what that feeling should be there in what? Bhogavastuni. Bhogavastuni jihasa. Yeah. Bhogavastuni means in the objects, vastu, of bhoga, pleasure. In the pleasurable objects which give me temporary kick, temporary pleasure, in all those objects, desire to give them up is called as detachment or dispassion. Why should I give up the why should I give up those things? Why? Because anitye, that he anitya becomes yanitye. You see, second last word, yanitye bhogavastuni is written. Yanitye means he means indeed. Anitye, anitya means that which is not nitya, that which is not permanent. Those bhogavastus, those pleasurable objects are not permanent, and therefore I should give them up. How do you know that it is not permanent? Go one step back, viveka. And therefore vairagya comes after viveka. In viveka, I come to understand that Brahman alone is real, everything else is unreal, impermanent. And something that is impermanent, why should I have attachment towards it? Why should I have desire to gain it? So vairagya means what? The attitude of detachment, dispassion. For what or in what? In those pleasurable objects which are impermanent. Dehadi Brahma Paryante Anitye, which are attained, these objects are attained from Dehadi Brahma Paryante, from this body till the Brahmaji's life. In every different life, in every different yoni, in every different birth, there will be different objects which are pleasurable. On the earth, we have different objects. In Swarga, in the heaven, there will be different pleasurable objects. The objects that will give me pleasure. Towards all of them, I have desire to give them up. I have dispassion towards it. That is called as Vairagya. And how do I experience or enjoy these objects? Darshana, Shravana, Adibihi. Darshana, seeing. Shravana, hearing. Pleasurable objects means what? That which is pleasurable to my eyes, that which is pleasurable to my ears, that which is pleasurable to my tongue. Oh, that is the most important, isn't it? In all these, desire to give up is called as Vairagya. So, again see the verse. Tad Vairagyam, that is called as detachment. What is that? Ya Jihasa, which is desire to give up. What? Anitya bhoga vastuni. Desire to give up in that impermanent pleasurable objects which are attained through bodies and births from here up to Brahmaji, and experienced how? Through perception, hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, etc. Through all these 5 sense organs, I am enjoying the objects of this world or of other worlds. Remember previously Shankaracharya said, Iha amutra phalabhoga viraga. Iha here, amutra somewhere else. In different worlds, different objects will be there. Towards all of them, I have feeling that I don't want them. This is called as Vairagya. Now, why this feeling is required? Why this feeling is important? Because you see, till the time we hold on to something lower, we cannot gain something that is higher. Isn't it? Must have seen in the, the ladder, when we are climbing the ladder, you have to give up the lower step, then only you can go to the next step, isn't it? Suppose you say that, no, I don't want to give this up, but I want that next step. It is not possible. Unless I give up something lower, I will not be able to take something that is higher. Brahman is higher because it is real. The entire world is lower because it is unreal. The moment I have this firm understanding, this viveka, that Brahman alone is real, everything else is unreal. Now, next capacity that I must have is to give up desire for something that is unreal. To have that desire that I want to give them up. I don't want it. Why? Because it is not going to give me permanent happiness. See, we have been searching for happiness for such a long time. We have lived our life entirely for that. And we have understood that by going behind these pleasurable objects, I am not getting permanent happiness. Yes, I do get bits of joys. I do get that kick at some time, but it is not lasting. I have to gain something that is permanent. And that permanent thing is Brahman. That permanent thing is my own self. Everything else is impermanent. Ability to give up this impermanent is called as Vairagya. In some texts, this here the word Jihasa is used. In another patha of the same text, it is called Jugupsaya. Jugupsa is little stronger word. Jugupsa means revulsion. Gup nindayam, to hate. Means what? In some places it will be mentioned as Kakavishtayam iva. Kakavishta is the dropping of the crow. When the crow is, something suddenly it drops, no? And then what you say, that feeling of that should be there in the pleasurable objects. That is called as Vairagya, they say. Means what? I don't want. Why do we still run behind the objects? Because we still think that there is some content of joy in them. In Vedanta Shastra, this is called as Shobhana Adhyasa. Shobhana Adhyasa means we think that there is ability to give me joy in those objects. We say that they are good, they are nice, and therefore then we run behind it. The scriptures tell us to do exact opposite. Scriptures say that they are yuck. You should not even look back at them. That kind of strong feeling should be there. Okay, careful, careful, careful. You see, dispassion or detachment is not giving up family. That I have got a lot of responsibilities and now Vairagya is there, I am giving up all my responsibilities. That is not called as Vairagya. Okay, family, relatives, etc. are not to be given up. Objects are not to be given up. Hankering for that objects or for the pleasures coming from those objects, that is to be given up. Careful. Objects are not to be given up. Otherwise, it will be easier to see, no, a person who has got minimum objects is most dispassionate, and person with maximum objects is least dispassionate. But it is not like that. Why? Because objects are not problem. What is the problem? Problem is my attachment with those objects. Objects may be there, objects may not be there. I don't have any feeling of wanting those objects. That is called as Vairagya. Okay? Vairagya is not running away from society. Vairagya is not hating the world. The world is, like that only. That is not called as Vairagya. Vairagya is to understand that the world is impermanent and therefore I don't want it. Oh, okay, some objects are there. Okay, let them be there. They are giving me joy. Let them give me joy. Oh, tomorrow the objects are not there. Let them not be there. But then I will not get joy. Let them not give me joy. This kind of absolute freedom is called as Vairagya. Sometimes, we have funny Vairagya. Means we have a feeling that we have dispassion, but that is not actual. Means what? For some people, something that they cannot get, they say, I don't want it. You must have seen, very beautiful story in childhood that they used to tell was of the fox and the sour grapes. Remember? That there are grapes and the fox is trying to jump and eat the grapes, but he is not able to reach the grapes and therefore returns and says that the grapes are sour, are not tasty, are not sweet. Many times for us, Vairagya is like that. In school, etc., we used to say, what is the point in coming first in the class? What happens by coming first? Who can say this? One who has come first in the class can say this. You can never do that even if you try, and therefore you say, I have left it, Swamiji. I have left. That pursuit is useless pursuit. My dear, the pursuit is not useless. You are not able to do it and therefore you have left it. What is that? Please understand that is not called as Vairagya. Vairagya is not to give up what you cannot achieve. That is not Vairagya. Sometimes, sometimes we have Vairagya for some time. It is called as Smashana Vairagya. Very interesting word. Smashan means the cremation ground is called as Smashan. So, means what? When a person goes to cremation ground for somebody's cremation, some body's cremation, and you come back and, is very much dispassionate towards everything, that, what is life? There is no point in, accumulating things, because one day you will have to go and you khali hath aaye the, hum khali hath jayenge, you came empty handed, you are going to go empty handed. Suddenly a person becomes philosophical, starts to give big discourses, but remember that stays only for few hours. After that, back to the world, back to enjoying and accumulating the entire thing. This Smashana Vairagya is not real Vairagya. Sometimes, we eat so much that indigestion happens and then the stomach is so full and you cannot even, and suddenly at that time you get vairagya. What? I don't want to eat food. That is for few hours. It is going to stay. That is because now you have eaten so much that you cannot eat anymore, and therefore a revulsion comes towards it. That is smashana vairagya. That is not real vairagya. That is not real detachment or dispassion. Real dispassion is what? Understanding that the world is impermanent and therefore saying that I don't want it. That is called as dispassion. I may think right now that some object is giving me joy, but remember, the very same object which gives me joy later on gives me sorrow also. Isn't it? New car, joy. The same car, when you have to fill petrol and when it is gone somewhere and then the tire is punctured or somewhere in the middle of the road it breaks down, then what? The same car becomes sorrow giving. Think about it. New phone, nice food, every single thing that we think gives us joy, the same thing also gives us sorrow. Therefore, actually, what is the point? The point is that the objects are sorrow giving. They are impermanent. Even if I say that they are not sorrow giving, they give me joy, but they give me joy only momentary. Momentary joy is what they give. It doesn't last. So actually there is no joy in the objects, and therefore ability to give them up is what is called as vairagya. Now as we saw, this vairagya arises from viveka. When I am able to distinguish clearly what is real and what is unreal, what is permanent and what is impermanent, then only I can give up what is impermanent, isn't it? The hankering over the impermanent things. But also, vairagya strengthens viveka. When viveka is there, vairagya is easier, and vairagya when it is there, it strengthens viveka. Why? Because you have given up what is impermanent, so viveka is stronger. Yes, indeed it is impermanent. That's how cyclic relation it has got between viveka and vairagya. Without viveka, vairagya is not possible, surely. But when vairagya is there, viveka is strengthened. Right? So that is what is called as dispassion. Vairagyameva abhayam. It is said vairagya, dispassion is fearlessness. Think about it. Fear is of what? Fear of death. Means what? Attachment towards body is what causes fear of death. Fear of public speaking. Attachment to your image is what causes public speaking fear. What will people say? I have got fear of height. Fear of height is not there. Fear of falling down is there and dying, which is again arising out of attachment towards body. Every single fear is born out of attachment. And therefore, vairagya, dispassion, is fearlessness. Vairagyameva abhayam. This topic of vairagya will come again later on in Vivek Chudamani, where Shankaracharya will say, vairagya na param sukhasya janakam pashyami vashyatmana. We will see at that time. He will glorify vairagya. He will show the importance of it. But this is called as dispassion. Now, important question. How to develop this viveka and vairagya? That you didn't tell. See, viveka is developed when we are in good company. Good company means what? People, texts, books which make me think about the reality, unreality of the world, about the permanence and impermanence of the world. That triggers viveka. And vairagya, how to develop vairagya? You have to practice it. Practice what? practice this feeling that what I am understanding to be impermanent, I should give it. Sometimes in scriptures they also speak of dosha drishti or pratipaksha bhavana, such terms you may hear. Dosha drishti means fault finding vision. This fault finding vision is not to find faults in the world, okay? That's not the point. The point is what? In your own enjoyments, you find faults. The objects that give you joy, you start finding faults in them so that you stop hankering for those pleasures. For example, suppose I say coffee is my weakness, suppose. And therefore, to have vairagya means what? Not to hanker for coffee. If that is what is stopping me, then what I should do? I should list down all the faults in coffee. Not in coffee actually, in me hankering for that coffee. I will list down all the faults. No, but Vedji, there are no faults. It is so good. Now, if you keep saying it is so good, you will never be able to give it up. The coffee may be good, but your hankering for it is not good. See how habits are formed. We suddenly start to think that without that coffee in the morning, we will not be able to work. Isn't it? No, that is bad. The coffee may be good, but finally to have such kind of feeling, suppose tomorrow you are in a place where you cannot have coffee, then what? No. Then you feel also, no, I am not able to think properly because I didn't have coffee. So your thinking capacity is dependent on coffee. There was a time when you were not drinking coffee. How were you thinking at that time? There are so many people in the world who don't have coffee, but they are thinking. This is called dosha drishti. You list down all the things. Suppose you come to know that I am watching TV too much. I am watching YouTube videos, Facebook, Instagram, etc. too much. If I want to have dispassion towards that, list down all the faults with it. That the time just passes away. I don't even realize I am wasting so much of time. And it is all utterly nonsense anyways. It's not something that will give any knowledge to me or will turn, make me turn inwards, etc. Nothing like that is happening. I am just passing my time, wasting my time away, spoiling my time away. So you list down all those faults. And then what? Next time you feel that you want to drink coffee or you want to watch TV, take out this list and read. This is what it does. Then what will happen? Slowly, I will not have that insatiable hunger for those enjoyments. This is how to develop vairagya. That's what Shankaracharya says in the next verse where he is defining Shama, but before defining Shama he is telling this. Let us read verse number 22. Please repeat. Virajya Vishaya Vratat Dosha Drishtya Muhur Muhu Swalakshye Niyatavastha Manasa Shama Uchyate Virajya Vishaya Vratat Dosha Drishtya Muhur Muhu Swalakshye Niyatavastha Manasa Shama Uchyate. So the definition of Shama comes in the second line. Swalakshe niyatavastha manasaha shamaha uchyate. But before that, what is he saying? He says, Vishaya vratat virajya. Virajya, detaching. Same root, ranj. From which the raga word is from, and then vigata raga, viraga, vairagya was formed. Same root is also here. Virajya, detaching, having that feeling of I don't want this. Virajya, from what? Detaching from what? Vishaya vratat. Vrata here means multitude, many. Vishaya means objects. From many objects, from these sense objects of the world, virajya. detaching from them. Vishayavratat virajya. How? Dosha drishtya. By this dosha drishti just now we have seen, fault finding vision or pratipaksha bhavana, understanding the other side of it. Other side of it, what harm it has on me. Such kind of desire, such kind of hankering, such kind of passion. What does it do on me? What toll does it take on me? Dosha drishtya, by this fault finding vision. How? Muhu muhu. Muhu muhu means what? Muhur muhu means what? Again and again. You have to bring this dosha drishti again and again. You have to have this detachment again and again. Why again and again? Because it is not sufficient you have it once. See, we have so many times we have decided that I want to give up a habit. Isn't it? That this habit is bad and I want to give it up. That's they say also, smoking is a habit which is bad for me, and therefore I have given up smoking many times. You have given up smoking many times means what? Every single time that I give up, I start it again. Then again I give up. Then I again start it. Why? Because that's how it is. Habits are of that nature, and therefore what I have to do? Again and again I have to bring this dosha drishti. Again and again I have to see the faults in it, and again I have to develop that detachment towards it. That is what is required. Muhu muhu, again and again, dosha drishtya, through this fault finding vision, vishayavratat virajya, detaching from the multitude of objects. So if you carefully see, this detachment is vairagya and the dosha drishti is viveka. The understanding that these are impermanent objects will not give me joy. This is viveka. So through viveka and vairagya, when I have cultivated this feeling that I don't want that which is impermanent, I don't want that which is unreal, when I have developed this, then what? Then you go to the next quality. What is that next quality? Next quality is Samadhi Shat Sampatti, no? Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi Shat Sampatti. Now in that Samadhi Shat Sampatti, the 6 inner wealth, the first one is Shama. What is that Shama? Shankaracharya says, Swalakshye, in one's own goal. Swa, one's own. Lakshya, goal. Swalakshye, Saptami Vibhakti, in one's own goal, Niyata avastha. Niyata means firm. Avastha means abidance. Manasaha, of the mind. Firm abidance of the mind in one's own goal is called as Shama. Shamaha Uchyate. Uchyate is defined, is called. This is called as Shama. What is Shama? To firmly establish our mind in our own goal. And what is that goal? That goal is Brahman. Don't forget that. Remember, it can be Saguna Brahma, Nirguna Brahma. It can be Bhagavan with form or without form, Nirguna Brahma. It depends on what level of sadhana you are at. But in any case, that is the goal. Saguna Brahma or Nirguna Brahma. Abidance of mind in that goal is called as Shama. Okay? Again, carefully you see here. If you have studied Tattvabodha before, the definition of Shama given in Tattvabodha is Shamah kaha, Mano nigraha, Damah kaha, Chakshuradi Bahyendriya nigraha. Isn't it? Shama means what? Control of mind. Dama means what? Control of senses. But here the definition of Shama is little higher. Control of mind is not just said as controlling the mind, but is saying that that controlled mind should be placed in your own goal. That is called as Shama. Controlling mind is correct, but that controlled mind should be placed in the goal in your goal. What is the source of all happiness? That is my own self. In that goal, you place your mind. Means what? The mind is no more going in the world. The mind is firmly placed in the object of meditation, in the goal that we all have. Swalakshe manasaha niyatavastha. Firm abidance of mind in one's own goal is what is called as shama. See, remember, this is, of course, shama means control of mind. No doubt about that. The word shama itself comes from root sham, which means control. So, shama means control of mind. But how is that control? I am controlling the mind and placing it in that goal. That is where I am keeping my mind. That is where I am controlling my mind. From the world, I am controlling the mind and placing it in the goal. That is what is called as shama. Swalakshe niyatavastha manasaha shamaha uchyate. This is called as shama. Now, what is dhamma? Next verse gives next two actually qualities, dhamma and uparama. Both are given in verse number 23. Let us read. Please repeat. Vishayebhyah paravartya sthapanam swasvagolake ubhayeshamindriyanam sadamah parikirtitah bahyanalambanam vritteh esho paratiruttama. Vishayebhyah paravartya sthapanam swasvagolake ubhayeshamindriyanam sadamah parikirtitah bahyanalambanam vritteh esho paratiruttama. So, shama, dhamma, uparati or uparama. These are the three qualities. Now, 6 are there, no? Shama, dhamma, uparama, titiksha, shraddha, samadhan. 6 are going to be there. First, shama is defined. Now, the next two, dhamma and uparati or uparama are defined. What is dhamma? He says, Vishayebhyah paravartya. Vishayebhyah, from the sense objects, paravartya, turning away. Taking a U-turn from the sense objects. Ubhayesham indriyanam, of both the types of indriyas. Indriyas means organs. Both types of indriyas means organs of perception and organs of action. I hope you understand these. Organs of perception, 5. Eyes, ear, nose, skin, tongue. Organs of action, 5. Hands, legs and genital, then anus and speech, 5. So, organs of perception, from where I take the world inside. Organs of action, from where I act in the world. In both these, for both these type of senses, turning them away from the sense objects and what? Sthapanam swa golake, and placing them, establishing them in their own golaka. Golaka means socket. Golaka. What do you mean by that? You see, we will be studying this later on also when the Sukshma Sharira topic comes. When we speak of organs, we are talking about power. When we say Chakshur Indriya, the organ of perception, or Shrotra Indriya, when we say organ of hearing, we are not talking about this physical ear or this physical eye. We are talking about the power behind the eye to see. This physical eye that you all see, this physical ear is called as golaka, aperture, socket. Now, what is said here beautifully, He says, generally what happens, my senses are turned outside and therefore I am looking, I am hearing, I am smelling everything of the world. I am seeing the objects of the world, I am hearing the objects of the world, I am smelling the objects of the world. Now, Dhamma is what? To take these senses away from these objects and to establish them in their own apertures. Means what? No more the sense organs or the organs of action are going in the world. That is what is called as Saha. That Dhammaha Parikirtitaha is well known as Dhamma. That's why sometimes, you see, the word Shama comes from root Sham, means to control. Word Dhamma also comes from root Dham, which again means to control. So, Sanskrit, if you see, Shama and Dhamma mean same. They are synonymous actually. But in Vedanta, we use it in a particular way. That's why it is called as technical term, Paribhashika Shabda. What is the particular meaning we are giving? Shama means control of mind, Dhamma means control of senses. Or in other words, Shama means control of mind on the level of mind, Dhamma means control of mind on the level of senses. Careful, understand the difference clearly. Either you can say Shama means controlling the mind and Dhamma means controlling the senses. Or you can say both means control of mind, but in Shama you are controlling the mind on the level of mind itself, whereas in Dhamma you are controlling the mind on the level of senses. So when Shama is there, Dhamma is not required. If the mind is already placed in your own goal, then the senses will not go out anyways. So then Dhamma is not required. But when Shama is not there, Dhamma becomes important. Suppose you don't get angry, very good. But suppose you get angry, then Dhamma is required. Then keep your mouth shut. Anger is there, so Shama is not happening, but still Dhamma I have to, anger is there, but I have to control on the level of senses. You understand the difference? So, Shama means controlling the mind. The anger does not arise. Then Dhamma is not required. Then I don't have to say, keep quiet, keep. No, because anger is not arising. So, when Shama is there, Dhamma is not required. But when Shama is not there, Dhamma becomes more important. When you cannot control on the level of mind, you have to control on the level of senses. We say, no, you keep your both hands, crossed and keep your finger on your mouth. Means what? Don't do anything with hand and don't talk. Why? Because when you are angry, when these two hands are free and your mouth is open, you will only make mistakes. On the level of senses, we say, shh. Now, this is what is called as Sthapanam Swasva Golake. You keep mouth and keep hands where hands are there. Don't let something else come in the hand. Don't. Keep your senses in their own respective sockets. That is called as Dhamma. See how beautifully Shankaracharya is explaining. He could have easily said, no, like if you see Tattvabodha definition is what? Shamakaha, Manonigraha, control of mind, Dhammakaha, Chakshuradi, Bahyendriya Nigraha, controlling the outside senses. But this is Viveka Chudamani. Philosophy married to poetry. You see poetry coming out. He says, Vishayebhyah Paravartya. Paravartya, he says, turning away from the sense objects. Sthapanam Swasvagolake, establishing in their own sockets. What? Ubhayesham Indriyanam, both the types of organs. Sadamaha Parikirtita. That is well known as Dhammaha. We have famous Shruti, famous quotation from Kathopanishad. Paranchikhani Vyatrunat Swayambhu. Tasmat Parang Pashyati Na Antaratman. Kaschidhiraha Pratyagatmanamaikshat. Avritta Chakshuhu Amritattvamichan. Kathopanishad, the knowledge is given when it is said, Paranchikhani, all our senses are outwards. They go to the world. Vyatranat swayambhuhu, because Brahmaji have made them like that. And tasmat, therefore, parang pashyati. The senses only see what is outside. Na antaratman, and do not see what is inside, what is my inner self. But kaschid dhiraha, there is some rare person. Pratyagatmanam aikshata, in order to see the self. Avritta chakshuhu, he turns these senses inside. Becomes really introvert. Introvert nowadays is used in a very negative sense. He is a very introvert person. Introvert person is, spoken of nowadays like he doesn't go out and, he is not very comfortable with people. That's not real meaning. Introvert means one who is not going outside, but one who is searching for it inside. So, Shama means what? Control of the mind on the level of mind itself, where the mind is placed in the goal and therefore doesn't have any negative tendencies. Dhamma means controlling on the level of senses. Because the mind is not able to stay at that point, you at least don't allow mind to go out. At least stop it on the level of senses. That is called as Dhamma. Now, the Shama and Dhamma, when it is there, perfect, it naturally goes to Uparati or Uparama, the next quality. What is said here? Bahya analambanam vrittehe of the mind, of the thought. Bahya, outside. Analambanam, no support outside. Alambana means support. Analambana, na alambana means no support. Means what? The thought is not resting on something outside. That is called as Esha Uparatihi Uttama. Shankaracharya says this is best Uparati. See, Uparama or Uparati both mean same. Both comes from root Ram. Ram means to revel. Uparama means not to revel. Opposite. See, Rama, Ram dhatu, no? Ramaman, we say, no? Ramaman hona. Reveling. Uparama means not to revel. So, Shama means control of mind. Dhamma means control of senses. Uparama means mind which is not reveling in the world of objects. Effortless withdrawal is what is called as Uparati. Shama, control of the mind. Dhamma, control of the senses. Uparama or Uparati, effortless withdrawal, where the mind is no more taking support of the world of objects. Means what? The thought is not going out and resting it in the world of objects. It is effortlessly withdrawn from those objects. That is called as Uparati. Esha Uparatihi Uttama. Non-reveling, total disinterest. So, actually when Shama and Dhamma are complete, Uparati is natural. You don't no more enjoy it. See, often we say that, Veji, my mind gets distracted because the objects are like that. You see, TV is like that, no? When it is playing, how can you not see? Arey, my dear, but when your child is seeing something, you don't see. The child is enjoying the cartoon, you have total disinterest towards it, and therefore it doesn't distract you. Suppose cricket match is being, shown on the TV. That is because you like, therefore in between study, in between the work also you keep looking at it. Suppose the TV is playing something which you have no interest for. News channel, etc., some boring stuff they are talking, or some serials, etc., they have put where you have no interest, then you don't have to put efforts. No, don't see, okay? No, focus. Not required. Why? Because I am not interested in it. Even if they give me for free, I don't want. If that is how we are, then it is what? Effortlessly withdrawn. Then Shama, Dhamma, nothing is required. You see, no control of mind, no control of senses. Why? Because you don't have interest now anymore. Okay, so that mind which is totally disinterested towards the pleasures of the world, that state of mind is called as uparati or uparama, effortlessly withdrawn. You know, Swamiji, when you go for trip, especially if it is, beautiful ocean or mountain or Himalayas, some cool place, you know what you should have? Tea. Oh, early morning, that nice weather and tea. Oh, but you are at the top of the mountain. How will you make tea? We should get some hot water and then we will take the tea bags and then we'll dip it and tea. For whom? One who likes tea. One who has no interest in tea. Will he ever have to do anything like that? No, not required. Nothing is required. Then why? Disinterested. Even the thought of having tea doesn't arise because they don't like. You see, that is the freedom of mind that we are talking about. Often, whenever this Viveka, Vairagya, Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, etc. is spoken of, we always ask this question, how to control the mind? The world is so enchanting that the mind goes towards it. How to control it? Such question was asked to Tukaram ji, Sant Tukaram, no? Great saint from Maharashtra. Some seeker asked that, how do you keep your mind in God? Because our mind always remains in the world, How do you keep your mind in God? And Tukaram Maharaj said, how can you not keep your mind in God? That you tell me. How do you not keep it? It is so beautiful, so enchanting. Sundarate dhyana ubhe vitevari kara katavari theuniya. How can you not have love for it? How can your mind not rest there in that beautiful form of Vittala? We're standing on that brick, keeping both his hands on his, vest, waiting for the devotee. How can you not keep your mind in that God? Once what happened, Narad ji wanted to see that this Bhagavan Krishna, Bhagavan Vishnu always keep praising Gopikas. What is so special about these Gopikas? So he wanted to check. So he went to Vrindavan. And Gopikas there, we all know that after Bhagavan Shri Krishna left them, they were all very much in pain. And therefore he wanted to see, do they have that level of devotion for Bhagavan or not? And when he was seeing that the Gopikas were doing their own work, etc. And one very strange thing he saw, that at one place, one Gopika was sitting and meditating. Now this was a very new thing for him. We also have never seen Gopikas, meditating, etc. So he waited. Narad ji waited. And waited for that Gopika to come out of meditation. The moment Gopika came out of meditation, he asked, I want to know, were you meditating on Krishna? What was in his mind was that, they also have to meditate on Krishna, you see. But the Gopika's reply was superb. She said, no, I was meditating to get Krishna out of my mind so that I can focus on my work. That blue-faced boy has gone inside my mind and has captured the entire mind. Now that mind is not available for work. So for some time, I was trying to keep that Krishna away from my mind so that I can focus on some work. We have problem that our mind doesn't remain in God. Saints have problem that the mind doesn't remain in the world. Why? Because Uparati, Uparama is perfect in them. Effortlessly, mind is withdrawn. And you see how Shankaracharya is explaining here, Bahya Analambanam Vrittehe. Bahya Analambanam means the mind doesn't take any outside object as its support. A thought always needs support of object. Antakkaranasya vishaya akarena parinamaha vritti. Vritti is what? Vritti thought is what? Parinama, modification of mind in the form of that object. That is called as vritti, that is called as thought. Now that thought is not resting in any object, it is resting in one's own self. That state is called as uparati. So shama, control of mind or control on the level of mind. Dama, control of senses or control on the level of senses. And uparama or uparati means effortless withdrawal, where the mind is no more resting in the world of objects, it is just withdrawn from it. That is called as uparati. Right? Sufficient for today. Now, next titiksha, shraddha, samadhana, and fourth quality of mumukshutva. Those definitions we will see in the next session. Titiksha definition, very beautiful definition of titiksha, Shankaracharya gives. We will see in the next session. Chalo. We will conclude. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.